30 minutes. That's all it took to go from being the family joke to the one having the last laugh. But let me start at the beginning. At the moment, my brother decided to humiliate me in front of our entire family at Christmas dinner. My name is Daniel, and I'm 31 years old. My brother Kyle is 34. We grew up in a comfortable middle-class home with parents who worked hard and expected the same from us. Kyle became a real estate agent, married his high school sweetheart Jessica, bought a nice house in the suburbs. He was living the dream, or at least that's what he wanted everyone to believe. Me? I took a different path. After college, I bounced around different jobs trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. Marketing, sales, freelance writing. Nothing stuck. 2 years ago, I lost my apartment when my roommate bailed on rent and left me holding the bag. I couldn't afford the place on my own, and my credit was already shaky from student loans. I ended up staying with friends, then on couches, then in my car for a few weeks. It was the lowest point of my life. Dark, humiliating. The kind of experience that either breaks you or forces you to rebuild from scratch. I chose to rebuild. But my family didn't know the whole story. They knew I'd lost my apartment. They knew I was between places for a while. They assumed I was still struggling, still barely making it, still the failure of the family. Kyle made sure everyone remembered it. This particular Christmas, we were all gathered at my parents' house. Mom had gone all out with decorations, a massive tree, the whole Norman Rockwell experience. Dad was carving the turkey. My sister, Michelle, was setting out desserts. Kyle and Jessica were holding court in the living room, showing off photos from their recent vacation to the Bahamas. I arrived a bit late, having driven in from the city. I was wearing a nice sweater and jeans, nothing fancy but clean and presentable. I'd even brought wine and a gift basket for Mom. Kyle looked up when I walked in, and I saw that familiar smirk, the one that said he was about to make me the butt of a joke. Well, look who decided to show up. Hey everyone, Daniel's here. Did you park your car out front, or are you still living in it? A few uncomfortable laughs. Mom shot him a warning look, but Kyle kept going. I'm kidding. Seriously though, where are you staying these days? Still couch surfing? Or did you finally upgrade to a studio apartment in a bad neighborhood? Kyle, that's enough, Dad said quietly. But Kyle was on a roll now, energized by the attention. Jessica was staring at her phone, pretending not to hear. Michelle looked mortified. No, I'm genuinely curious. Because last I heard, little brother here was basically homeless. And I just want to make sure he's okay. You know, family looking out for family. The word hung in the air. Homeless. He'd said it loud enough for everyone to hear. Loud enough to make sure it stuck. I felt my face burning. Every eye in the room was on me. Some pitying, some curious, some just uncomfortable. I'm doing fine, I said evenly. Fine, come on man, you can be honest. We're all family here. If you need help, just say so. I mean, I'd offer to let you crash at my place. But Jessica and I really value our privacy, you know? He laughed. A few others laughed nervously. I just stood there holding the wine and gift basket like an idiot. Mom intervened. Daniel, come help me in the kitchen, sweetheart. I followed her, grateful for the escape. Behind me, I heard Kyle say something else I couldn't quite make out, followed by more laughter. In the kitchen, Mom squeezed my hand. Don't listen to him. He's just showing off. He called me homeless in front of everyone. I know, honey. I'm sorry. He shouldn't have done that. But the damage was done. For the rest of dinner, I felt people watching me differently, treating me carefully, like I was fragile, asking vague questions about how things are going in that tone people use when they think you're struggling but don't want to embarrass you further. Kyle didn't let up. Throughout the meal, he made little comments about my job prospects, about the housing market, about how lucky he was to have stability. Each comment was a small knife, and he knew exactly where to twist it. By the time dessert rolled around, I'd had enough. I was about to make an excuse and leave early when Kyle stood up, wine glass in hand. I'd like to make a toast, he announced. Oh no. To family. Even when times are tough, even when some of us are struggling more than others, he glanced at me pointedly, we stick together. So here's to another year, and hoping that next Christmas we'll all be in better places. He raised his glass. Everyone else followed awkwardly. I didn't raise mine. Kyle noticed. "Come on, Daniel, don't be sensitive. It's just a toast." Something inside me snapped. I stood up slowly. Every eye turned to me. The room went quiet. "You're right, Kyle. Let's talk about better places." He blinked, surprised. "What?" "You made a big deal about me being homeless, about me struggling, about how you're doing so much better than me." "Daniel, Mom started, but I held up my hand. "No, it's okay. Kyle wants honesty, so let's be honest." I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, pulled up my account balance, turned it so Kyle could see. His smirk faded. "That's $647,000, I said calmly, "my current account balance." The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Kyle's face went white. That's not real." "It's very real." I swiped to another screen. "And this is my investment portfolio. Currently valued at $1.2 million. Jessica's jaw literally dropped. Michelle gasped. Dad leaned forward, squinting at the screen. "For the past 18 months," I continued, "I've been working as a software consultant for tech startups. I specialize in app development and user experience design. I taught myself coding when I was living in my car, using free Wi-Fi at libraries and coffee shops. Turned out I was really good at it." Kyle was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. "I've been contracting with 3 different companies. One of them just went public last month. My equity turned into real money. A lot of real money." I looked directly at my brother. "So yeah, I was homeless for a while. It was the worst time of my life. But I used it to rebuild myself into something better. While you were taking luxury vacations and showing off, I was working 16-hour days, learning skills, building a future." I set my phone down on the table. I didn't tell anyone because I wanted to be sure it was real. I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to crash again. But now I'm sure. Last week, I closed on a condo downtown. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, Riverview. I move in after New Year's. The silence was deafening. Kyle opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. "So thank you, Kyle, for your concern about my living situation. But I'm doing just fine. Better than fine, actually." I picked up my wine glass and raised it. "Now, how about that toast to family?" The rest of Christmas dinner was the most awkward meal of my life, and I'd once eaten ramen noodles for 37 days straight. After my announcement, nobody knew what to say. Mom looked shocked but proud. Dad kept glancing between me and Kyle like he was watching a tennis match. Michelle was grinning ear to ear. She'd always hated Kyle's showing off. Kyle and Jessica left 20 minutes later with a weak excuse about Jessica not feeling well. As they were putting on their coats, Kyle pulled me aside. "That was a pretty humiliating power move," he said quietly. "You humiliated me first, in front of everyone, after I've been working my tail off to get back on my feet. I didn't know. You didn't ask. You just assumed I was still failing so you could feel superior." He looked at me, and for a moment I saw something in his expression. Not quite remorse, maybe embarrassment, maybe envy. "We'll talk later," he muttered, then walked out with Jessica. After they left, my family descended on me with questions. "Why didn't you tell us?" Mom asked. "I wanted to be sure first. I didn't want to celebrate too early and then have it all fall apart." $600,000, Dad repeated, like he couldn't quite process it. "From coding?" "From consulting and equity. I got lucky with the startup going public. But yeah, mostly from skills I taught myself." Michelle hugged me. "I'm so proud of you, and I'm sorry Kyle was such a jerk." "He's always been a jerk," I said. "I just finally had the ammunition to fire back." The next few days were interesting. Word spread through the family fast. Apparently, Kyle had been telling people for years about how much more successful he was than me, how he'd made it while I was still struggling. Now everyone knew the truth. And it was a very different truth than the one Kyle had been selling. My phone started blowing up. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years suddenly wanted to reconnect. Aunts and uncles called to congratulate me. Everyone wanted to know the details of my success story. But Kyle? Radio silence until New Year's Eve. He called me at 11 p.m., clearly drunk. "You made me look like an idiot," he slurred. "You made yourself look like an idiot. I just told the truth." "Everyone's talking about it. Everyone knows I was wrong about you." So, I don't know. Why didn't you tell me? We're brothers." I almost laughed. "Kyle, we haven't had a real conversation in 5 years. Every time we talk, you're either bragging about yourself or putting me down. Why would I tell you anything personal?" Silence on the other end. "I didn't realize I was that bad," he said quietly. "You were. You are." More silence. "I'm sorry," he finally said. "For Christmas, for all of it. I've been, I don't know, jealous maybe. You always had this freedom to just try different things. I got locked into the real estate thing and a mortgage and car payments and I don't know. I think I resented that you could just exist without all that pressure." It was the most honest thing Kyle had said to me in years. "So you dealt with that resentment by mocking me?" "Yeah, which was stupid. I know that now." I sighed. "Look, I get it. Life is complicated. But you humiliated me at Christmas. You called me homeless in front of our entire family. That's not something I'm going to forget quickly." "I know. I'm really sorry. Is there any way I can make it up to you?" I thought about it. "Maybe, but it's going to take time. And you're going to have to actually change, not just apologize when you're drunk." "Okay. Yeah, I can do that. We'll see." We hung up. I didn't know if Kyle would actually follow through. People rarely change, especially when that change requires admitting they've been wrong for years. But the call did make me think about what success really means, about why I'd kept my achievements secret, about whether I'd done it for the right reasons, or if part of me had been waiting for exactly this moment, the chance to prove everyone wrong. Maybe Kyle wasn't the only one with something to learn from all this. Here's what I didn't tell everyone at Christmas dinner: the full story, the parts that weren't just about money or success. When I was living in my car 18 months ago, I hit rock bottom. Not financially, that was bad, but I could have figured it out eventually. I hit rock bottom emotionally, mentally. I was 30 years old, sleeping in a 2009 Honda Civic, showering at the gym, and eating dollar menu items for every meal. I thought about giving up. A lot. One night, I was parked in a Walmart parking lot trying to sleep when a security guard knocked on my window. He was an older guy, maybe 60, with kind eyes. "You okay, son?" I rolled down the window. "Yeah, just between places." He studied me for a moment. "How long you been living in your car?" 3 weeks. He nodded. "I did that once, back in the 80s. Lost my job, lost my apartment, ended up in my truck for 2 months." "What happened?" "Taught myself auto mechanics at the library. Got a job at a shop, worked my way up. Now I own 3 repair shops across the state." He pulled out a business card and handed it to me. "You got 2 choices right now. You can feel sorry for yourself and stay stuck, or you can use this time to become something better. But you gotta decide. Nobody's gonna rescue you." Then he walked away. I kept that card. It's in my wallet right now. That conversation changed everything. The next day, I went to the library and started researching high-income skills I could learn for free. That's when I found coding, programming, software development. It was perfect. All you needed was a laptop and internet. I had both. I spent 12 hours a day for 3 months learning Python, JavaScript, React. I built projects, created a portfolio, applied for freelance gigs on Upwork and Fiverr. My first project paid $200. I cried when I got that payment. By month 6, I was making enough to rent a cheap studio apartment. By month 9, I'd landed my first major client, a startup developing a fitness app. They needed someone who understood both coding and user experience. I threw everything into that job, worked constantly, learned constantly. When they offered me equity instead of higher pay, I said yes. That startup was called FitLife. You've probably heard of it. They went public last year. My equity package was worth $800,000. Suddenly, I wasn't just surviving. I was actually wealthy. But here's the thing, nobody talks about when you go from broke to rich quickly. You don't feel rich. You feel terrified. Terrified it'll disappear. Terrified you'll mess it up. Terrified people will treat you differently. So I kept it quiet. I lived modestly, saved aggressively, invested carefully, kept working hard because work was the only thing that felt stable. I didn't tell my family because I didn't want them to see me as an ATM. I didn't want Kyle to suddenly be nice to me because I had money. I didn't want people's perceptions of me to change based on my bank account. I wanted to figure out who I was when money wasn't the defining factor. But Kyle forced my hand. His cruel comments at Christmas, his public humiliation, he made it impossible to stay quiet. And you know what? I'm glad he did. Because pretending to still be struggling was exhausting. Always deflecting questions, making excuses, pretending I couldn't afford things when I actually could. The truth was liberating. Complicated, but liberating. After New Year's, I sat down with my parents and told them everything. The full story. The car, the library, the security guard, the coding, the startup, all of it. Mom cried. Dad just kept shaking his head in amazement. "Why didn't you ask us for help?" Mom asked. "Because I needed to do it myself. I needed to know I could." "But we're your parents. We would have—" "I know, but I needed this. I needed to hit bottom and climb back up on my own." Dad squeezed my shoulder. "I'm proud of you, son. Not because of the money, because of the grit, because you didn't quit." That meant more to me than the bank account ever could. Michelle started telling people the real story. Not the flashy parts about money, but the hard parts. The car, the struggle, the late nights at the library. Suddenly, I wasn't just Daniel who got rich. I was Daniel who survived homelessness and rebuilt his life. The narrative shifted, and people responded differently. More respect, more genuine interest, more questions about how I did it, not just how much I made. Kyle called again 2 weeks later. Sober this time. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about how I treated you." "Okay." I talked to Jessica about it, about why I felt the need to always put you down. She said I was insecure, that I tied my self-worth to being the successful one in the family, and when you struggled, it made me feel better about my own problems. "What problems? You have a house, a wife, a stable career?" "Yeah, and $60,000 in credit card debt. A mortgage we can barely afford, a marriage that's been rocky for 2 years. I project this image of success, but underneath it, I'm drowning." I didn't know what to say to that. "I'm not telling you this to make excuses," he continued. "I'm telling you because I want to be honest. The way you were honest at Christmas. I've been living a lie, pretending everything's perfect, and then taking my stress out on you. That was wrong." "Yeah, it was. I want to do better. Be better. I don't know if you'll forgive me, but I want to try." For the first time since Christmas, I actually believed him. "Okay," I said, "let's try." Here's the twist nobody expected, including me. 3 months after Christmas, Kyle called me with an unexpected proposition. "I want to learn what you do, the coding thing. I'm thinking about making a career change." I almost dropped my phone. "Seriously?" "Dead serious. Real estate it's not working anymore. The market's shifting, my debts are piling up, and I hate it. I've always hated it, actually. But it seemed like the safe choice. And now? Now, I'm realizing safe choices can still drown you. I need something different. Something I can actually build a future with." I met him for coffee the next day. He looked different. Tired, humbled, real. "Why coding?" I asked. "Because you proved it's possible to learn it and make real money. Because I'm good with logic and problem solving. And honestly, because I need to do something where I'm not constantly comparing myself to other people's success." He paused. "Also because maybe if we work in the same field, we could actually connect as brothers instead of competitors." That got me. I agreed to help him. Not with money. He didn't ask for that, and I wouldn't have offered. But with knowledge, guidance, the resources I used, the path I took. Over the next 6 months, Kyle threw himself into learning. He was up at 5 a.m. before his real estate job, coding until 7, home by 6 p.m., coding until midnight, weekends at the library, just like I'd done. I watched him struggle through the same frustrations I'd experienced, the concepts that didn't make sense, the code that wouldn't work, the projects that failed. But he didn't quit. In month 4, he landed his first freelance project, $250 to build a simple website for a local business. He called me, excited as a kid on Christmas morning. I did it. I actually got paid to code. I smiled. How does it feel? Like I'm finally doing something that's mine. Not inherited, not expected, just mine. By month 7, he'd built enough of a portfolio to start applying for junior developer positions. By month 9, he got hired at a medium-sized tech company. The pay was less than what he'd been making in real estate, but he didn't care. "I'm actually happy going to work," he told me. "I haven't felt that in years." Jessica was supportive but cautious. The pay cut meant tightening the budget, selling the big house, downsizing. It meant admitting to their social circle that things weren't as perfect as they'd seemed. It meant being honest. Kyle struggled with that part. People keep asking if we're okay, if we're in trouble. I hate having to explain. "You're not explaining failure," I told him. "You're explaining growth. There's a difference." Slowly, he started to understand that. We began meeting for coffee every Sunday, not to talk about work or money or success, just to talk about life, about struggles, about our parents, our childhood, the ways we'd both been shaped by expectations we never questioned. One Sunday, about a year after the Christmas incident, Kyle said something that surprised me. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not letting me get away with it, for calling me out, for showing me there was another way to live. I didn't do it to teach you a lesson. I did it because I was angry. I know, but it taught me anyway. You could have stayed quiet, let me keep being an idiot. Instead, you held up a mirror, made me see what I'd become." He paused. "I'm sorry I made fun of you for being homeless. I'm sorry I used your struggle to make myself feel superior. And I'm sorry it took you publicly humiliating me to wake me up." "It wasn't humiliation," I said. "It was truth." "Same thing sometimes." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. "You know what's funny?" Kyle said. "I spent years defining myself by being better than you. More successful, more stable, more adult. And the whole time, you were actually doing the harder, braver thing. Rebuilding from nothing. Learning new skills. Refusing to give up. I didn't have a choice." "Yes, you did. You could have stayed broken. A lot of people do, but you didn't." That year, Christmas was different. We met at Kyle and Jessica's new apartment, smaller than the house, but cozy. They were open about the downsizing, the career change, the process of rebuilding. No pretense, no performance, just honesty. When Kyle raised his glass for a toast, he looked at me. "To second chances, to new beginnings, and to brothers who call you on your nonsense when you need it most." Everyone laughed, including me. Later, as I was leaving, Kyle walked me to my car. "You ever think about that Christmas?" he asked. "Sometimes. I used to think you got revenge on me that night, made me look foolish in front of everyone. And now? Now, I think you gave me a gift. A painful, embarrassing gift, but a gift. You showed me I could choose something different, that I didn't have to keep pretending." He stuck out his hand. "Thanks, brother." I shook it. "You're welcome." Driving home that night, I thought about revenge. Real revenge. It's not about humiliation or making someone feel small. That's just cruelty. Real revenge is showing someone what's possible, reflecting back their own potential, refusing to participate in their lies. Kyle thought Christmas dinner was his low point. It was actually his turning point. And that was the best revenge of all. 2 years have passed since that Christmas. A lot has changed. I'm still working as a consultant, though now I'm more selective about projects. I bought that condo downtown. I date, I travel, I live comfortably, but not extravagantly. More importantly, I sleep well at night knowing I earned everything I have. Kyle is thriving as a developer. He's gotten 3 promotions and now leads a small team. He and Jessica are in a better place. Less stress, more honesty, more connection. They're talking about having kids. Michelle started her own business, inspired by both our stories. She said watching us rebuild ourselves gave her the courage to try. Mom and Dad are just happy we're all talking again. The security guard who gave me that business card, I tracked him down, took him to dinner, thanked him for the words that changed my life. He barely remembered the conversation, but he was glad it helped. Here's what I learned from all this. Rock bottom isn't the end. It's the foundation. When you have nothing left to lose, you're finally free to build something real. Success isn't about making others feel small. It's about becoming the best version of yourself, regardless of what anyone else thinks. Family is complicated. We hurt each other. We disappoint each other. But sometimes those painful moments are exactly what we need to grow. And revenge? Real, meaningful revenge isn't about destruction. It's about transformation. It's about proving that you can't be defined by someone else's limitations or judgments. When Kyle called me homeless at Christmas dinner, he was trying to establish superiority, to remind everyone who was winning and who was losing. What he didn't understand was that I'd already won. I'd survived the worst thing I could imagine, losing everything, and built myself back stronger. The money was just proof. The real victory was the person I'd become in the process. So when I revealed my secret that night, I wasn't destroying Kyle. I was freeing both of us. Him from his need to dominate, me from my need to hide. The truth set us both free. If you're struggling right now, whether it's homelessness, career failure, family dysfunction, or anything else, know this. Your current situation is not your final destination. You get to decide what comes next. You get to choose whether to stay stuck or start climbing. It won't be easy. It'll probably be the hardest thing you ever do, but it's possible. I'm living proof. And if you have someone in your life who's constantly putting you down, trying to make themselves feel superior by making you feel inferior, you don't have to participate in that dynamic. You can tell the truth. You can set boundaries. You can choose yourself. That's not revenge. That's self-respect. Kyle learned that the hard way. And you know what? It made him a better person, a happier person. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable their worst behaviors. So here's to rock bottom, to rebuilding, to truth-telling, to uncomfortable Christmas dinners that change everything, and to brothers who finally learn to see each other as they really are. That's the real gift.